The last few weeks we have been focused on the Earth's internal processes. In general, these processes are powered by the heat within the Earth, and they work to build up the continental surfaces. For example, volcanoes, mountains, etc. This week we'll begin to study the Earth's external processes. In general, these processes are powered by forces other than the Earth's internal heat. For instance, it might be powered by gravity. And these processes work to tear down the Earth's surface. As you look at the table here, you can see several processes which we have already discussed. These internal processes. Next, we're going to look at the external processes, and you can see that there are 3 external processes that we're going to cover: weathering, mass wasting, and erosion. And again, you can kind of think of it as a battle between these internal processes building up the Earth and these external processes tearing the Earth's surface down. Collectively, these forces that tear down the surface of the Earth are called denudation. All the actions that lower the continental surfaces. And that includes weathering, mass wasting, and erosion. Next, we also need to define each of these 3 processes. Are you taking notes? If not, get out a paper and pencil and get this down. First, let's define weathering, and you'll see that there's actually 2 sub-processes involved. Weathering is the physical breakdown, disintegration, and chemical alteration, decomposition, of rock at or near the Earth's surface. So you can see there's 2 different things going on in that definition. There's the physical breaking down of rock, and there's the chemical alteration of the rock. So disintegration and decomposition. We're going to look in more detail at these 2 terms in just a minute. But next, let's first define mass wasting. Mass wasting is the downslope transfer of Earth materials due to gravity. And lastly, erosion. Erosion is the physical removal of material by mobile agents such as glacial ice, water, and wind. All right, so we got all 3 definitions. Next, let's check out figure 15.1 again and look at how these processes act together. In general, these 3 processes are described as having sequentially. First, the rock breaks apart, weathering, then it falls down, mass wasting, and lastly it gets carried away, erosion. For one piece of sediment, this sequential view makes a lot of sense, as long as you remember that in reality, all 3 processes are happening at the same time in any given location. Another quick point as you look at this diagram, you'll notice they show clouds and rain in and among the weathering part of the diagram. This is because, as we'll soon see, water plays a major role in many weathering processes, and it actually plays a role in mass wasting as well. Next, let's look at a couple of famous places that are formed in part by these denudation processes. First, check out the opening photo in chapter 15 in your textbook. It depicts the Grand Canyon. Commonly, people say the Grand Canyon was carved by the Colorado River, which implies erosion. This is partly true. The Colorado River erodes an enormous amount of sediment each year. Further, the river does at times directly loosen material from the canyon walls. However, it's also important to remember that a great deal of sediment is also broken up by weathering up high along the canyon walls and then sent down into the valley by mass wasting. Then, after that, the Colorado River picks up this material and moves it downstream. So in reality, all 3 processes are instrumental in creating the Grand Canyon. Similarly, you'll hear people say that Yosemite Valley was carved by glaciers. Indeed, this is partly true. Glaciers did break off some material from the valley floors and walls. However, glaciers did not carve Half Dome, which is shown here. And really, For the entire valley, all three denudation processes play a very important role. Weathering chemically weakens and breaks apart the rock. Mass wasting brings it down to the valley floor. And then glaciers, historically, and now rivers and wind sweep it away. We'll look at how weathering created the sheer face of Half Dome a bit later in this lesson.